Welcome to ETM 240 Practical Lab 1 with Chris, Nick, and Paul. We were asked to build a circuit and demonstrate it, as well as make the diagram and label it and calculate the output force. So we're going to go through that with you now. This is the diagram we made. And so we had an AND circuit where you had to push two buttons in order to make the circuit work. It wouldn't work with just one. Limit switch will always work by itself. So we have our first AND button here. They're 4-port, 2-position push button valves. You have incoming pressure on the normally not passing, and the normally passing is vented, so that when you push it, they'll swap. Same with the second push button as well, and you can see that.
As you push it to one button, nothing. The next button, nothing. Both together, you see the cylinder extends. Let go, cylinder retracts.
Yeah. And so now, with that, we have that ORed in with a limit switch, which is going to be our third button over here, labeled B there. So either that can be pressed or that, but those have to be pressed together because they're an AND circuit. So if you use the limit switch, it'll go through the flow control with the PO check, and that will actually bypass the shuttle and go fill up the volume chamber that we have there, and it will pilot operate that 5-port 2-position pilot operated valve. So once the volume chamber is full, it'll actually pilot operate this valve right here. And what that's going to do is, because it's normally passing right now and pushing this second power valve over, so the air is actually coming through right here to port 4, and that's going to come up, pass right past there, and that's going to make it retracted in a normal state. But then when you press the button, it's going to fill up the volume chamber, click that over, and it's going to push it back to the normal state, where then the pilot on the power valve is actually going to extend the cylinder. And with this flow control over here, that's an off delay, so after a certain period of time, when it's extended, it'll automatically retract if you're using the limit switch. And if you're just holding the buttons down, it's not going to do that. And with that, we also have a meter outflow control on our extended portion of the cylinder, so that we can control the speed in which it's actually actuating.
In accordance with the lab instructions, we were required to calculate the static force of our cylinder. Cylinder force is a function of Pascal's law, which is pressure times area. You can see here we have the math, and we have our circuit plumbed with roughly 30 psi. And you can see our cylinder here. You probably can't see this, but it's a cylinder with a 2-inch bore. And back to the math here. So force equals pressure times area, so we have 30 psi, and then 0.7854 times 3.14 squared is the area, and then our force is just over 94 pounds, and we don't actually have any way to check that, but that's the way the math works out.
Now we're going to show you a circuit demonstration showing all the components of our lab that we've built here.
Alright, remember it's an AND gate, so you gotta push both buttons in order for the cylinder to extend. Let go of both, they retract. Chris, let's sit there and slow down the detention speed on that cylinder.
So here's our flow control, and if I close that, it restricts the flow.
And you keep cylinder's going real slow now, it's extending out.
Okay. Now I'll open it up and this will speed up the extension.
That thing is
Open it up a little bit more.
And then we have our timing function as well with this flow control. Now if we close this, it's going to make the timer longer when dealing with the limit switch valve or the third push button there. So you can see that the volume chamber fills up if they press the limit switch button. Now normally that limit switch would never be hit until the circuit was pressed from the other two push buttons, and that's what actually would turn it off and cause it to pretty much reciprocate, kind of locks it in. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more in-depth information about our components and the circuit functionality. Push button 1 with a vent, push button 2 with a vent. We have our flow control with PO check. The line coming from the volume container is going into 2. So this is your pilot line coming in, this is what's going out, and the volume going to A of the control valve. You can see it's on a normally passing, going out, coming back over here, which is piloting the power valve. And then you have just your pilot line. Normally this would be larger in a real application, but for this we're just replicating it with air. And then we have our A and our B. A is going through the metered control to the extension side, so that when air comes out, it hits the flow control and it'll slow down the extension speed. This is replicating our limit switch. When you press that, the timing function will kick in, and only when that's pressed, because it's simulating a limit switch. Other than that, I think that's about everything. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for